Welcome back. I'm Sanjana and I'll be explaining Chapter 4 of the Brain Facts book. This chapter is called Learning, Memory, and Emotions. Let's get started by explaining a case of a guy named Henry Molaison. He developed terrible seizures as a child, and to solve this problem and prevent more severe seizures, the doctors performed split brain surgery, leaving him with permanent amnesia. So he could not remember historical events that happened after surgery, but he could remember all the historical events and facts that happened before his surgery. So this case helps neuroscience because now we know more about the parahippocampal and hippocampal regions as well as the medial temporal regions because they organize and consolidate memory. Let's talk about the types of memory. So the two big categories are declarative and non-declarative memory. In declarative memory, it's subdivided into the episodic and semantic memory. Declarative memory are things like facts, data, and events, and you can actively recall on them. Semantic memory is cultural knowledge and ideas, and concepts that you've accumulated over a period of time about the world. Episodic memory is unique representation of your personal experiences. So now let's talk about other types of non-declarative memory. So there's long-term declarative memory, which is stored in various networks of the cortical areas. Short-term declarative memory, also called working memory, and it holds a quick phone number or sum. Spatial memory, which is important for navigation. So when you're navigating familiar areas like your house or neighborhood, the place cells in the hippocampus light up, but the grid cells in the entorhinal cortex in the hippocampus light up when you're navigating unfamiliar areas. Non-declarative memory. So non-declarative memory is a type of memory that you can recall without conscious thought. One example of this is motor skills. On this slide, I listed 3 different brain regions that are important for motor skills: the prefrontal cortex, the basal ganglia, and the cerebellum. So the prefrontal cortex is crucial because it plays a role in higher order cognitive functions. The basal ganglia is important for complex body movement, and the cerebellum is involved in balance and coordination. Synaptic memories. So the first phrase I want to talk about is synaptic plasticity. And that's the ability for synapses to remodel themselves in the number and shape of synapses and neurotransmitter release. And we learned this from the aphasia californica, and it was specifically about the chemical and structural changes that happen. So the aphasia californica is like a sea slug, and the neurons are very big, making it easier for neuroscientists to learn about chemical and structural changes that happen in the synapse. So this slide talks about the key for synaptic plasticity. We have long-term potentiation, the long-lasting increase in synaptic strength, which occurs in many brain regions, but especially in the hippocampus. And in long-term depression is the decrease in the synapses effectiveness. One of the most common neurotransmitters in the human body is glutamate, an excitatory neurotransmitter. So you have 2 receptors, the N-methyl D-aspartate, the NMDA, and AMPA, which stands for alpha-amino-3-hydroxyl 5-methyl-4-isoxazoline propionic acid. And so when glutamate binds, it allows the calcium and sodium ions to enter the cell, which increases the number of receptors on the postsynaptic cell and enhances the synapse by permitting more electrically conductive ions to flow in. Finally, we have emotions. So in the 1970s, an anthropologist named Paul Ekman identified 6 basic senses: anger, fear, surprise, disgust, joy, and sadness. So one of the brain regions that's involved in emotions is the amygdala. So the amygdala is for negative emotions like fear and disgust. That's the end of chapter 4 of the Brain Facts book. You can join me for the next chapter of Thinking, Planning, and Language. Thank you.